Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I'm joined by the beautiful Lindsay Washburn. Lindsay, how you doing today?
Good. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. I'm so excited to be doing this. I do want to put a little disclaimer here real quick. I'm in Michigan, and we got some pretty bad storms going on right now. So if there's any lag
Oh,
on this, guys, I'm so sorry. Usually the video will lag a little bit, but the audio will be fine. And hopefully it gets stuck on her and not me if it lags a little bit. So um, a little bit about Lindsay for you guys. She was born and raised in Iowa. She started acting at the age of 5, which is truly incredible. She's an advocate for Crohn's disease awareness, which is also awesome. I have a grandmother that suffers with Crohn's disease. It is not a
uh,
lot of fun, especially on long road trips. So
nope.
thank you for the work that you do with that. I'm very big on autism awareness myself. So
Hmm.
thank you for the work you do. Anything that you can do to try to help people is so
Oh,
incredible.
yes. Yeah. Whenever you can just put your story out there so people realize that they're not alone with what they're going through, that
Yeah.
other people are going through it too and know exactly how they feel. So,
Yeah. And again, I know how hard it can be to live with something like that. So thank you for the work that you do to try to help bring awareness to what is truly a very difficult disease to live with. So I appreciate
thank
what you
you.
do. And I'm sorry for the battles. I know that it's not fun all the time. So not fun any of the time, to be honest.
No, it's not. But I mean, I've met some really great people and it's given me some really cool opportunities. So I'm grateful for that.
Do you have like a website or anything that you take donations or anything like that?
No, I've put out other charities that I think are good and need donations and are not that well known. Every once in a while, I'll put those up on my Crohn's Ranger Twitter. But other than that, I don't really have a website. But mostly, I'll post pictures and I do photo shoots sometimes. Anytime I have a huge surgery, just to show people what our bodies actually go through when this stuff happens. And I was published in Women's Health magazine, did a photo shoot with them about it, and that was probably one of the best opportunities that I had out of it.
That's really cool. I was not aware of that part. That's really cool. Men's Health came to me for the dad bod issue,
Did
but
they?
yeah, they said it was more of a father figure than a dad bod, so they didn't want me in there. Um, but the reason you're here, you do run your YouTube channel as well, Lindsay Washburn, that
Yes,
showcases movie
yes.
reviews, VHS collecting, and movies people should see and know about. And the reason I bring this up now is because I have the link to her YouTube right down here in the description, as well as her social media links. So you can follow along with her battles through Crohn's disease, and you can just follow her on social media to get to know her a little bit better. So we talked about with your YouTube channel, how you showcase movie reviews, VHS collecting, and just random movies. But what can you tell us a little bit? Do you have anything coming up here in the future that you're going to be doing on the channel?
Yes, I'm hoping to do like a week long a video every day thing leading up to Halloween, but
Mhm.
they'll all be different, but all centered around spooky horror movies, that kind of thing. But I have several little different kinds of videos that I do on my channel, and I want to do a special Halloween episode kind of thing of each one of those. That's my
Yeah, that's
plan. I
awesome.
don't know if I'll be able to pull it off, but that's what I'm that's what I'm going to be hoping to accomplish.
Well, Godspeed. I wish you the best. And you guys don't have to wait for me to update you about it because her channel's right here. So before we get started on the reason why you're here, Lindsay, I do also want to give a shout out to a good friend of mine, Justin, over at Movies Watch Daily. If you guys don't follow him on social media or subscribe to him, I've had him on the show before. He's the one that hooked me and Lindsay up. And I was so excited for this opportunity. Justin's a great guy. So Movie Watch Daily, make sure you're checking him out as well. Well, Lindsay, we know what you're doing here in the future. We know what you got
Mhm.
going on right now, but I want to take it back to the past. And I want to talk
Yes.
about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And your first horror movie was,
The Hitcher with Rutger Hauer and C. Thomas Howell.
every time I watch this movie, the whole time I'm like, stay gold, pony boy, stay
Yeah,
gold, pony boy, stay gold. And
right?
it's funny because I haven't thought about this movie in a long time. And another cool thing that I have right down here in the description is the YouTube link. So if you haven't seen The Hitcher, you can check it out because it is free nonprofit
Mhm.
here on YouTube. So you can check this out as well. Do you remember how old you were the first time you had seen it, Lindsay?
I had to have been probably 6 or 7 years old, I think, the first time I saw it. And the first time I saw it, I didn't catch the whole thing because
Mm-hmm.
this happens a lot with the movies that I first discovered when I was a kid. I'd see them when I was on a road trip with my family. We'd stop at the hotel and they'd have HBO and we're,
Sure.
flipping through to see what movies we can find, and this was one of them. Um, And I just did a video about Split Second with Rucker Hauer, and there was a very similar story with how I discovered that film. But this one I did find, and it came in probably about halfway through as we were watching it, and just Rucker Hauer's performance just completely creeped me out. Like, he was the scariest man I'd ever seen. And so that stayed with me for a really, really long time.
Absolutely. And you watch this film in the part where he's got the knife to the kid's neck, and he's like, you'd be surprised how much blood comes out of a man's neck when you slit his throat. Yeah. And then he's like,
say 4 words.
Okay.
Say one of that.
And that whole scene is so tense and hard and heartbreaking. You know, even on a rewatch, I'm watching it, and like I said, I haven't seen this movie in years.
Yeah.
And I'm watching it again, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so intense. Like, it's
super
so
intense, because there's no lead up into the story. It's just like, this kid's driving and he picks up Rucker Hauer, and he's trying to start like small talk with him. He gives him a cigarette, and then they have some kind of chuckle, and he's like, that's what the last guy said. What last guy? The guy that I just picked up, but he won't be going anywhere for a while because I cut his legs off, I cut his arms off, I cut his head off. And it's just, from right there, you're like, oh shit, and your heart just drops. And from then it's just nonstop until the end. It's great.
And it's funny because after that, he ends up coming upon that car with the person dead, and he just starts throwing up, and he's getting the blood on his shoes. Like, so intense. Like, and it's one of those things where I don't think I fully appreciated this movie as a kid, because I had never driven, you know, and I had never, you know, been in the situation to pick up a hitchhiker. It reminds me of that joke. Like, you pick up a hitchhiker, and it's like, I'm scared that you might be a serial killer. And then, what are the odds of that? Two serial killers in the same car. You know, like, that's totally what this, you get that vibe. And it's just, like you said, the performances in this movie, I'm surprised this isn't more of a cult classic movie, because I don't ever hear anybody talk about how great this film is. And if I'm not mistaken, they recently did a remake of this.
Yes, they did a remake. I think it was in 2007, and it's not bad. It doesn't live up to the original, because Sean Bean plays John Ryder in that one, and it follows a couple as they're being tormented by him. And it, like I said, it's not bad. It's pretty well done, because I mean, they need to modernize it a little bit. But there's one scene where John Ryder is chasing them, and there's the helicopter, and all the cop cars are chasing them too, and he comes through and just annihilates all these cop cars and the helicopter, and they've got 9 Inch Nails Static X Closer playing, and it's just
that's awesome.
It's pretty well done.
I didn't. The only reason I knew about this is because in doing my research, I always like to go back and rewatch these films before I talk about them. And that way I kind of have them fresh on my mind, and I don't look like an idiot while I'm here. And at first, that's all I could find was the 09 version. And then I went to YouTube just, you know, on a hunch, or 07, I think it was. You're right.
Yeah.
It was there on YouTube, and I was like, cool. And I'm not going to look so stupid when I talk about this.
Yeah, because it's not, I don't think it's streaming anywhere right now. I think if you have like Showtime streaming or something, like an add-on to Amazon, I think you can stream it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, but you guys don't have to, because the link's down here. It's free on YouTube.
Yep.
I'm not, I promise I'll stop talking about the description now.
Watch your VHS copy.
That's awesome. And it's funny because I don't know if you know this or not. Everybody that watches podcast, like, oh, great, here we fucking go. But I grew up in a video store. My parents owned a video store.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, looking at like the Dead Alive case back there, like I see these and it totally takes me back. Like for the younger generation, they don't understand that was our YouTube. Going to the video store and just
you're
walking
picking by the covers.
Cases. Yes. Like that's how I seen Fright Night for the first time.
Yep.
That's how I seen Dead Alive for the first time. I was just seeing the front cover. And like that's why I'm such a big poster guy, because that's what I grew up with. That was my YouTube, looking at the covers and then looking at the back and just trying to read a little description of what was happening in the movie. And to see your VHS collection back there is so awesome. Like I see the 2 cassette of It back there.
Yep.
I don't know why. I'm the rare person that has it on one VHS.
Really?
The whole movie on one VHS. I used to have the double VHS, but I would kill to have the double one again, to be honest with you. I think it's incredible that you have that. But yeah, back to the Hitcher. This is a movie that, like we said, it's very intense. It kind of reminds me of darker Cape Fear. where you have the insanity of the person that's just doesn't give a shit, who
Yes,
knows what he does.
yeah, and they're not gonna stop. They're not gonna stop, and they want to mess with you psychologically, and just make you go crazy, and then finally try to kill you.
Yes, and in watching this again, there were a lot of scenes that really stuck with me that obviously didn't as a kid, and it kind of bums me out. I watch this more as a kid because this is actually a well put together film.
Yeah, it is.
But what scene would you say it was that affected you the most?
The one that affected me the most, well, I mean, there's that opening scene where he first gets in the car, and you have no background on this character, and you still don't by the end of the movie. You still don't know who he is or why he's doing this or why he's there, what his motivations are. You just don't know, and that's what makes it even scarier. But I would have to say the one that freaked me out when I first saw it and when I was a kid is the semi scene towards the end where he's got Nash hooked up between, the end part of the semi and then, the front, and he's got his foot on the clutch and he keeps playing with it and she keeps getting pulled further and further. And it's just like the whole scene is so tense and he just does not care. He doesn't care. And that's what really makes it scary. He's like, shoot me. I don't care. I'm waiting for you to do something. Because if you don't, my foot's coming off this clutch. So
he's a total sociopath.
What are you going to do? Total sociopath. Yep.
Yeah. And, he's, I wish that, obviously, I can't say much because I don't want to spoil it for people that haven't seen it, but they couldn't continue his story. Let's just say that.
Right.
So this is a movie that, like I said, a lot of people I don't think have ever really even paid attention to this movie, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But when you think about this movie, let's say, Lindsay, you and I were at the bar, we're having a drink, and somebody comes up like, man, have you guys ever seen this movie, The Hitcher? What's the first thing that pops in your head when someone brings up this movie?
It's Rutger Hauer and his performance. I think this is his best performance ever. He's so good in this. He's so good. And
he's got dead eyes.
He's got dead eyes. And it's the way he acts, even outside this movie, is he's so charming and just magnetic, but he's also just terrifying and intimidating and relentless. So it's got these two sides that come together and you don't know what to make of it, but it makes you want to keep watching and watching and watching. And I love that about him.
Absolutely. He killed all the performances in this movie are great.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't understand why this movie didn't get, maybe it's just me, but I just don't see why this movie didn't garner more attention than it has in the horror community.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as gory as it could be. The remake is a little gorier than this one, but I think that lends more to the terror when you don't know exactly what he did. I mean, he drives by and he's obviously murdered that family that he jumped in with. And you don't get to see him he kills like all the police officers in the police station. So your mind just kind of has to make those connections yourself about like how he did it and what he did. And I think that's even more terrifying.
I would rather you give me a design and then hand me the paintbrush and let me fill in the blanks than just show me a painting all the way done and be like, this is what's happening in this film. And like you said, I don't need blood and guts and gore for a movie to be scary. No. Just like, Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Let me use my imagination for a lot of this. Let me see a shadow of a hand moving and blood splatter. Like, let me. And I mean,
don't get me wrong. I love gore. I love blood and guts, and I love it. But it has its place, and it doesn't always need to be there.
Right.
If the other elements are there, you don't need to rely on them as much.
Yeah. And again, I want to. Chime into that. I'm not shitting on what people call gore porn. That's I hate the title, but I'm not at all shitting on that. And I agree with you, but I'm just saying I don't need it to be scared. No. More of the psychological things is what personally scares me more. There are people that the blood and the guts and the gore, that's what scares them. And, respect, if you're in the horror community and you're loving horror, I love you. So I want you to find that thing that's your niche, that you're so proud of and that you gravitate towards. And for me, it's always been more psychological thriller stuff I've been. And this is a perfect example of that, where this guy is just so psychological and he's so intelligent. And I think all the best slasher/serial killers were always like that. They had that charisma that you want to keep following, you want to keep watching, but they're so evil and there's nothing. And they got the devil's eyes, the blackest eyes. Like that's this, you know what I mean? Like that's this incarnate. So we talked about, Lindsay, which scene affected you the most from The Hitcher, but what would you say your favorite scene from the Hitcher would be?
Oh man, I like the diner scene when you know, C. Thomas Howell's character, he had kidnapped the cops and he's gonna turn himself in, but then John Ryder comes up in the truck and shoots the two cops, and he's just like, oh, what am I gonna do now? Shit, you know.
Right.
So he goes to this diner and he just collapses into the booth, and he's sitting there and he's just got his hands in his face, and you see someone sit down across from him, and it's Rucker Hauer. And they just kind of have that little standoff where he puts the gun under the table and Rucker Hauer puts his finger under the table, and he's just constantly messing with him. And I think that scene right there encapsulates that the best, just how he's just to him, you know.
Yeah. Like, I'm here. What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
Yep.
Guns empty, dude. What are you gonna do?
So this is something we kind of just touched on, but I really want to get into this now. We, as horror fans, we love the kills. It's something that gravitates us towards horror, as dark and demented as that sounds, but it's something that we can live out of fantasy through, you know, fantasy, I guess. Which kill from the Hitcher would be your favorite, or the one that stuck with you the most from the Hitcher?
I'd say Nash's does, because I mean, there's not a lot of like on-screen kills in this movie. I
Right.
mean, there's only a few, but I mean that, and then the headshots on the two cops. They're pretty they're pretty gory.
Yeah, especially for what this movie's been giving you so far.
Yeah.
So, Lindsay, we talked about your first horror movie being The Hitcher, and how much you know, obviously gravitate towards this movie because of being your first horror movie. But now, for a second, I want to go scream on you. What's your favorite scary movie? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
I would say, well, my favorite movie of all time is Jaws, but there are a lot of people that don't technically consider that a horror movie. But I would have to say, if it's something that most people would consider a horror movie, I'd have to say The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing.
And see, I'm one of the people that I totally believe Jaws is a horror film. You know, you can say what you want, but that shit is a horror film.
It's a slasher film.
It really is. It's an underwater slasher.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I feel the same way about Jurassic Park, to be honest with you. I feel like Jurassic Park is a total horror film.
Yeah, they're monster movies, which is
yes. Like there's so many movies that people get so sticklery about, and I'm always defending them, like Jaws, Jurassic Park, Ghostbusters. The original Ghostbusters to me is a total horror flick. And then like the Terminator, the first Terminator is just a total slasher. Like he's literally going through the phone book, killing every single one, you know, like every, you know, Sarah Connor that's in the phone book, he's just wasting them. Like it's total slasher to me. But the thing, the thing about The Thing, that's got to be one of the, it's in at least my top 3 favorite practical effect movies of all time.
Oh God, yes, yes, it's incredible, the stuff that they did in that movie. It's just incredible.
Yeah. I mean, you look at that. For me, my top 3 has always been, in no order, The Thing, the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and An American Werewolf in London. Those movies to me, when it comes to practical effects, are just, you can't top those movies. And I really think when you look at all 3 of those movies and you look at the remakes or prequels or sequels, whether it be The Thing's prequel, the Nightmare remake, or the American Werewolf sequel in Paris, the thing that brings those films down in comparison to the originals is the use of CGI over practical effects. It is. It is. I mean, if you look at Nightmare on Elm Street, compare the 2 scenes where he's coming through the wall.
Yes.
You know, like that.
It's such a simple yet effective trick that they use. It's like, why couldn't they do that in the remake? It's just,
and the remake just looks silly when he's moving all around. It just doesn't look good to me. Like I don't. And again, something I've said a lot on this podcast. I don't, and I am not shitting on CGI, because if CGI is used correctly in a limited amount to enhance a practical effect, it can be amazing. But the problem is when you have an overusage of it and it just starts to look computerized. Look at Freddy vs. Jason. That's a movie where I feel like the CGI was way overused, and it really brings down the tone of the movie to me, because it becomes more comical because there's no belief that this is real. It looks computer enhanced. The Texas Chainsaw 3D literally looks like a PlayStation game. You know, like the effects look really bad in these, and that brings it down to me as a horror fan that grew up watching The Thing, Nightmare, Jaws, all these movies that are just so beautifully shot using practical effects. So, Lindsay, before I let you go, we always end these with the same question. We're going to go back to the Hitcher. And what we're doing now is we're going to rank this movie on a skull count, 0 being the worst and 5 being the best. Here's the catch. This is not a ranking of production. It's not ranking the acting, the quality. We're not being critics. What we're doing now is strictly ranking this movie on how much it affected you on the first time you watched it. So 0 being the worst and 5 being the best. You can use half and quarter skulls. What would your ranking of the Hitcher be?
I would give it a 5. I think it just the psychological stuff in it, Rutger Hauer's performance. I also love desert horror movies.
Yeah.
And this was the first one I ever saw. So ever since then, I've really loved desert horror movies. So yeah, I got to give it a 5.
Well, and desert horror movies, like you're saying, it really enhances the fear because no one's going to fucking find you.
No, there's so much isolation to it. I love it.
The movies that this movie alone has influenced, and you know, like even Joyride. We just recently rewatched Joyride.
Joyride is good.
You totally get that nonstop killer that's just going to get you no matter what because of, you know, and in Joyride's case, they made a simple mistake of messing with somebody. But in this movie, all you did was pick him up.
Yep.
That's the mistake you made, was being kind. So I want to remind everybody, I know I said I wouldn't do it again, but it's my show. All of Lindsay's links are down in the description, guys. So make sure you're following her on social media, subscribe to her YouTube. She's got a lot of great stuff coming up. And through the social media, not only can you follow her to get updates on what she's doing, but also on the Crohn's disease awareness things that she's doing. Maybe we can all educate ourselves a little better on what is really going on with Crohn's disease. Because if one person's suffering, as human beings, we should all care about that suffering, regardless of race, skin color, sex, anything like that. If one human being is suffering and we have a way to at least educate ourselves and understand what this person is going through, that can make us better people. So if we can get out there and educate ourselves a little bit to try to have some sympathy for other people that are going through these things that may seem so foreign to us, it can't do anything but make us better. So please make sure you're following her so you can educate yourself a little bit. If you're unaware of Crohn's disease and what that does to affect your body, it would really be appreciated, guys. So Lindsay, don't go anywhere, please. I have a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
Everyone else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.